All right, looks like we're live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast. Today we have on Mr. Nick Marsh, who Nick and I were just talking about offline here. Is Nick and I met down at the Bassmaster Classic. We finally got the time to bring him on here, talk to him about a bunch of different stuff because we have some pretty sweet topics that we're going to talk about. But before we get into that, huge shout out to Douglas Outdoors as well as Queen Tackle. And I want to make a big shout out today to Amped Outdoors because coming up in 2021, Andrew and I, who you guys know as my co-host on Monday nights, we have a pretty big announcement. But we're going to hold off. We're going to make you guys wait for it. It's going to be something pretty cool that we're going to be pretty excited about. We're going to be working our tails off to try to make this thing pretty sweet. But huge shout out to Amped because they're going to be helping out with us, covering a lot of it, bringing a lot of support. So huge shout out to them. And then shout out to Douglas Outdoors and Queen Tackle for hooking us up with all the sweet fishing gear. So check them out below. Go down the description. There's some codes you guys can use to save some money and get yourself some high quality and premium fishing gear. So without further ado, we're going to bring in Mr. Nick Marsh. How are we doing, sir?
How we doing? All right. Good to see you, man. It's good to finally get on here. I know, like you were saying, we met down at the Classic, and man, it gets a little crazy down there. You know, you meet a million different people, and you kind of forget about people for a little bit, and then you finally see someone on Instagram or something or somewhere online. You're like, oh man, I totally forgot we were supposed to connect, and so glad we finally got to it.
Yeah, no, that place was awesome. Like you mentioned, like you meet so many people and make so many different connections that sometimes it's overwhelming.
That was the first one I've really been to. I've been to, a lot of the tournament venues and, all the pro circuits and stuff. And I mean, they're big. There's a lot of people, but the Classic is like, dude, it's a whole nother ball game. I mean, it's like you walk in the doors and you're like, dude, this is legit. This is a lot of people like in one spot. So, I was there for, I don't even know. I think I was there for like 6 days total down that way. And, I can't tell you how many different people I ran into and met. So it's like, like we said, we kind of forgot about it for a bit, and then at least we were able to reconnect. So all good.
Yeah. 100%, man. It's good to have you on. I'm pretty excited to talk about a whole bunch of different stuff. And for people who may not know, you have your own podcast series yourself.
Yep, a little bit. So it's kind of cool. Caleb and I, we've kind of been lacking on it a little bit here and there. We kind of were. We first started it, we were super gung-ho and did a bunch of episodes, and then you get busy with other stuff and you forget. But, we did that on Spotify, the Vision series. It's basically just more than anything, it's like an informational kind of podcast just to go over, basically from high school to collegiate fishing, give the guys a bunch of info on it, talking to sponsors and how to present yourself and how to get into college. So kind of informational. We've definitely been slacking, but we'd like to try and get some more episodes up on there. So we'll see. Maybe in the near future, we get a little bit of time, we'll do that.
Heck yeah, man. I wish I knew at the time that that's kind of what your podcast was based around, because I had a panel that was just all about college bass fishing. And I had some folks who all fish at the collegiate level. And it was cool. I had Ronnie Moore on because he can give us the business side of things.
Right.
So I had these different aspects, these different viewpoints going on. But it would have been great to have you guys on for a college bass fishing panel to talk to these high school kids coming up as like a resource.
That's pretty much all we wanted to do. We, we kind of just gave our 2 cents on everything we've, learned and experienced through the college ranks, and just try to give a basic outline of, how to talk to college coaches and maybe colleges, and even for you, maybe go into the BFLs or the Toyota series is what you want to do. So we talk about a whole bunch of different good stuff. But like I said, we've kind of slacked a little bit on. We're not on episode 115 like you are here, so
it's been a grind. It's been a lot of tweaking. It's been a lot of adjusting, but we're finding our stride here. So it's been pretty awesome, and you guys will find yours. I think it's a great resource.
Yeah,
what you guys are doing. And for those who don't know, you were a collegiate angler for Adrian College, and we're gonna get to that. But first and foremost, before we get too deep, we're already 5 minutes in. We're already running away with these things. But first and foremost, man, how did you get into bass fishing? Who showed you? Who put that rod in your hand and got you your first bass? What was that experience like?
So it was kind of the typical. My dad got me into it. My whole dad's side of the family, the Marsh side, they all are huge outdoorsmen. They love hunting and fishing, and that's pretty much all they do. So growing up, the first two things I got put in my hand were a golf club and a fishing pole. And so, as the
Very
years went
expensive
on,
activities.
yes, exactly. As the years went on, I kind of gravitated more towards the fishing, but definitely, my old man was the one that got me into it. He'd take me, walleye jigging on the Saginaw River and the Detroit River and up north some areas. So I really cut my teeth, walleye fishing, trout fishing, and then probably around, I'd say 2009-ish, I met a guy named Brian Bellvender, and he was one of the youth coordinators here in Michigan. So he kind of got my feet wet in the tournament scene. I joined some local men's clubs. And then, from there I did some of the youth stuff. I did TBF final or state finals for youth. And then I did the high school stuff when that started. So I think it was my sophomore year of high school is when I really started to get into it serious. My sophomore year was the first year they did high school fishing in Michigan. So did that, got lucky in high school and had some great finishes, won a regional, won a national title. And then from there, I was going to follow soccer. Actually, I played soccer my entire life. And so I was gung-ho on going and playing college ball somewhere. And then that's kind of when Seth Borton got a hold of me and was like, hey, we're starting a team at Adrian. And, you're interested, we'd love to have you. So then it took off from there. Then it was bad. Bad news bears, a lot of money, and a lot of time spent on the water, bad grades, all that stuff. So
Oh no.
yeah, yep.
Oh no, but oh yes.
Oh, exactly. It's so no, it all that's kind of where it started. It was with my old man, and fishing on the river and trout fishing, and just kind of catching whatever we caught, we'd eat, that kind of stuff. And then then the tournament bug hit me, and it was game over. So pretty cool stuff. But
yeah. So overall, your experience, at Adrian, then fishing at the collegiate level, some things that you're taking away from it that you're fortunate for, and talk a little bit about maybe some stories, some highlighted tournaments.
Sure. Yeah, no, Adrian was man, it really, that was kind of the eye opener, I guess, for the tournament world as a whole. I'd done a lot of local stuff, and like I said, I got lucky, and I won a high school national, and that kind of got me started. And then, I from there I had won. I didn't win. I'm sorry. I made the state men's team, and then I made it through regionals, and I went all the way to nationals, and then nationals. I placed top 10, so that qualified me for the BFL All-American as a co-angler, so I fished that. So once that kind of happened, I kind of got the taste for the bigger stuff, and then Adrian came about, and so I was like, wow, okay, I think I'm really going to do this. So Adrian was really, really cool because we were one of the few varsity teams. So, we were fully funded and had trucks and boats, and that was something totally different than a lot of guys got to experience in college. And I'm super fortunate because without that, I don't know if I would have fished in college. I literally just bought my first boat like a year and a half ago. So all through college, all I did was I basically used the school's equipment. And so without the school, I wouldn't have been traveling to these tournaments. I wouldn't have been fishing. So that was kind of a cool experience. And, man, we went to some cool places. I think I counted it up the one day, and I went and fished in I think it was 15 or 16 different states, over the course of my 4 years. So that was cool. And, it gave you a huge sense of the travel that's, required with this sport, and all the little stuff you never thought about, like blowing tires and all the tournament prep and the lack of sleep. And then you've got schoolwork mixed in, where you've got to finish all your homework in between tournaments and while you're practicing. So it was a crazy experience, but man, do I miss it. I met some really, really good people, and definitely grew a lot as an angler. Got to see a lot of, like I said, a lot of bodies of water and expand on a lot of new techniques. So I think that for anyone who wants to fish professionally, or anyone that wants to, grow in the sport and maybe make it more than just a hobby, college fishing is a great stepping stone because you get so much experience on the road for no entry fees. It's basically costing you your travel and whatnot and your time, and you can go and fish against what are going to be up and coming pros and on great bodies of water and really cut your teeth and figure out, man, is this for me or not? So I enjoyed it a lot. That's for sure.
100%. You're seeing a lot of college bass fishing grow. You're seeing these more and more anglers you're seeing now that are kind of these staple names. In the pros, you're seeing their names pop up coming from the college ranks.
Right.
Obviously, probably the most notable one, obviously Jordan Lee.
Yep.
You got Jacob Whitaker. I mean, you have some guys that are coming to being the pros, but also not. You have guys coming from the college bass fishing ranks to work in the industry.
Exactly.
So take like a Ronnie, for example. I mean, you see different guys that come from that, and it helps them prepare. It gives them insight into the industry, whichever direction they might choose. So I think it's beneficial, no doubt, either way.
It's a really cool experience, and Caleb and I talk a little bit about it on our stuff, and we kind of realize, college isn't for everyone, obviously. So, for me, it fit really well. One of the big reasons was because I was having a boat provided for me, and that was a game changer. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't have been on the water otherwise. So,
no doubt.
But there's other people that are fortunate enough, they might have a boat already, and maybe they want to go to trade school and go fish BFLs or Toyota Series. And that's a great option too. I mean, you can gain a ton of experience doing that, fish against some really good guys in those events, and see if you got a knack for it and if you're cut out for professional fishing. But no, yeah, I mean, I just I'm like sitting here, and it's funny because I look back where Caleb and I were when we started as freshmen at Adrian and where we're at now, and it's like not in a million years would I guess 5-6 years later now, I'm pretty much immersed in the fishing industry, and we're, working with companies that's awesome. And I've seen all this behind the scenes stuff, and you realize how big the industry is, but how small it is. And, there is a lot of opportunity, to do something other than just professionally fish. And so that's been kind of a cool eye opener, but, and that's kind of why we started the kids stuff too. That was, we realized that there was a need for, youth development, I guess, in the sport, and so it's kind of where we stepped in a little bit. So pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that's really awesome. I think I love what you guys are doing. So keep that up, and like I said, I hope you guys can get back to making some more pods for sure. I think that's something that could be a great resource for high school anglers and college anglers that are that are going through the process. So
right. Yep.
But so we're gonna get into kind of how you got into guiding in a little bit, but I think one thing coming off of that, I think it'd be really important to talk about is your A1 angler development. Talk to us a little bit about what that is, and then we'll kind of expand upon it.
So I'll give you a little backstory, I guess, on it all. So Caleb and I, Caleb Taylor, for those of you that are listening that don't know who Caleb is that I keep referring to, Caleb Taylor is my roommate in college. I fished probably 80% of my college tournaments with him. So him and I kind of have a history or whatever, and lived together for the 4 years. And so basically, while we were going through college, Caleb kind of had this idea in his head, and he never really told me much about it. I kind of knew he wanted to do something revolving around kids and the youth, but he never really explained it to me. And so, come graduation time, he graduated a year ahead of me, and so he graduated, was out of school for a while. Then once I graduated, I actually jumped into marine sales. So I was a boat salesman for almost 9 months. And then, out of nowhere, Caleb kind of was like, all right. He's like, so here's what I've been working on. Here's what I want to do. And basically what he explained to me was, there's a huge need for someone like Caleb and I basically to teach kids more about the sport and to help parents. There's a ton of parents out there that we noticed that were basically going, all right, well, my kid loves fishing. I've never fished in my life. I have no idea about tournament fishing, so I'm just going to buy them a boat. Or I'm just going to, basically throw them into the deep end and hopefully they do okay with it. We were like, okay, let's take a step back. We've done it. We've been there. And so why don't we kind of guide you guys through it? Instead of you buying a $50,000 boat for a 16-year-old, why don't you join our summer program? And we will teach them everything they need to know about tournament fishing, from running a boat, reading electronics, baits, knots, techniques, rod act, anything you can think of, A to Z in tournament fishing. We're basically going to teach them what they need to know to become a tournament angler. And that way they can figure out, okay, hey, I really like this. I think I want to pursue this more and go to college, or maybe I want to fish professionally. Instead of going, okay, so my parents just bought me a $50,000 boat. I really don't like fishing that much, actually. It's not my thing. now what? Now we got this boat that we have. So it's like, that was just kind of crazy. And there's, like I said, there was a huge need for us to kind of help guide parents in the right direction because they didn't know what the next step was. We had a ton of people going, hey, I don't know what to do to further my kid in the sport. I need help. So basically we're trying to bridge that gap and get more youth into the sport. And so, now 2 years into it, I basically quit my sales job and dove headfirst into this thing with Caleb. We run a 8 to 10 week summer program where we teach high school kids, like I said, everything A to Z on tournament fishing and try and develop them and develop all their skills. And then, the goal is get them as a freshman, leave them as a senior, and then hopefully get them recruited by college if they want to do that. And then the other thing we do is we have like our tour team and our elite team. We basically, we help these guys in their tournaments as well. So, there might be a kid who's in the 8 week program and he's learning all these techniques throughout the summer. He's learning how to deep crank. He's learning how to, dock fish. He's learning how to read his graphs or grass lines or whatever it is. Okay, now what he's doing is we're taking him to a tournament, and now he gets to implement that strategy in a tournament and really see, okay, wow, this is where I can benefit, and this is where I can, apply this. Yeah. So it's really cool. It's been super fun. I wasn't really sure about the whole coaching thing and if I'd like working with high school guys, but it's been awesome. I've really enjoyed it, and the anglers that we have, on our team right now they're awesome. They've developed, tenfold where they were when they started, and so it's really cool to see them progressing. Now 2 years into it, and one of our original guys that kind of joined the program first thing off the bat, Owen and Matthias, they actually just qualified for nationals this year. They made top 2 in Angler of the Year for the BASS High School Nation, so for the state of Michigan, that is. So that's awesome. Good for them. So it's been exciting, but yeah, these guys can obviously, you're on the website, there's a ton of info on there that they can read about. And I mean, we cover it all, man. It's crazy. There's been a lot of work put into it. That's for sure.
I think, and for those who are listening, I highly recommend to go down the link below and check out the A1 Angler Development website, because this is what Nick and I are looking at right now. Yeah. And this, I think, is something really important, because I speak about this from personal experiences. I didn't grow up in a bass fishing family. I was the first one to really dive deep into bass fishing and kind of take it, have it, pretty much surround my life. And that being said, when it comes to tournament stuff, everything I learned beyond, obviously I learned stuff from other anglers and, YouTube and reading magazines and whatnot. But when it comes to ethics, as you have mentioned here in the website, ethical operation, showing you all unwritten ethical codes involved in fishing, those aren't exactly stuff that's put in an article in a magazine. That's learned through someone showing you the ropes. And that's something that I kind of learned kind of late, because I didn't really have a mentor per se, because everything was self-taught. So things like that are very important, to help these anglers that are looking to take on tournament fishing. So I think that's something that not many people think about teaching. So I think that's super important, because one, you don't want to get those anglers into trouble. You always want to know what's right, what's wrong, what's unwritten, different things along the lines of that, because that can kind of distinguish you between certain decisions that you might make along that path. And it definitely plays into a factor of yourself as an angler. Not only that, but also your image, of yourself displayed to other anglers, right? I mean, if we hear all the stories about all the anglers and the pros and the certain decisions they might have made that make certain other anglers and leagues think about them in a certain light. So I think that's super important that you guys teach that beyond just the basic tournament fishing skills, etc. I think that's super important. I think
it was funny because literally, I think it was yesterday, I was out fishing with one of my good buddies, and he tournament fished for probably 30 years now, and he's just taken up golfing all of a sudden. So he was kind of laughing because the other day he goes, we're up on the green, and he's like, I've never golfed before, really. So he's like, I'm just learning, and he goes, my buddy's blowing up at me, yelling at me because I'm stepping in his line. And he's like, and I don't even know what that means. He's like, what do you mean I'm stepping in your line? He's like, the what? And he's like, super confused. He's like, the guy's like, oh, you're in my line. That's where I'm going to putt. And he's like, well, what about the other 40 people that have been on this green today? So it's kind of like you said, there's like these unwritten rules that unless you've been there and experienced it, then, you look like an oddball. You're the odd man out now all of a sudden when you're 45 years old, just starting up golf and you're golfing with all your buddies and you're like, oh, I had no idea that there's a line thing. So we're kind of trying to teach the same thing. We noticed a lot with these high school kids and even with the captains too, a lot of these captains are just dads that, run the boat and they don't really tournament fish much. They don't realize that they're doing things that are totally unacceptable on the water. It's just like, it's totally defined to them. They have no idea. So we kind of were like, okay, we definitely need to make that a part of our program where we teach these guys the right and the wrong, the unwritten rules basically of bass fishing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's a big part of it for sure, because, like I said before, it's a big industry, but it's a small industry, and you can make a really good name for yourself very quickly, and you can also make an absolutely terrible name for yourself extremely quickly. And if you mess that name up, it's not very hard for all these head decision makers at these companies, nationally, whether it's nationally or even locally, they're all really small circles. So as soon as you make a bad name with one person, it doesn't take long. I mean, it travels fast, so that's for sure.
So that being said, let me ask you this: what do you think is the biggest, let's call it overlooked, ethical, unwritten rule that people may not follow or may not realize for a long time? Something that people should know that isn't really taught, that people kind of expect you to know.
Man, what have I noticed the most? Caleb and I were just talking about this a little while ago too. We keep, there's certain kids that keep having these problematic tournaments, but I think more than anything, it's probably having to share water and share areas. There's been a real big issue. A lot of our lakes up here are really small, and so you've got basically kids will find these same areas and they fish so close to each other that they don't really realize that they're being unethical with the way that they're doing things. And I think part of the one of the big issues that we have is that instead of some of the high school guys talking it out on the water, they're just getting mad and they're casting over each other's lines, or they're cutting people off on purpose now, and then it's this domino effect. And instead, it's like, okay, let's be the bigger person here. Let's talk and say, hey, man, I'm going to fish down this line of docks here. Which way are you going? Are you going down, or I see you just pulled in. Are you going to go down that way? Because that's kind of the direction I was heading. And then it's like, oh yeah, I was going to go that way. Okay, well, do you mind, like, you could fish the other side of this canal, or do you mind? I'm kind of already working down this way. It's just like those are kind of the things where instead of talking it out, high school kids are more just like, I'll just turn my back and keep going down and we'll be all right. So that's kind of been a little bit of an issue. I think another big issue is kids following other kids. They see maybe who their boat captain is and who they're fishing with, or that they've been doing well this year. And some of these lakes are pretty open up here. So you're running down the lake and all of a sudden you see this boat and, you notice they notice you, and then they whip around and now all of a sudden they're fishing directly at you. They see you catch a fish and then they're fishing right at you. Yeah. So we've kind of taught our kids, especially like St. Clair, that's a huge issue up here is, it's a bent rod pattern, and it's terrible on Clair. So we've really tried to teach our guys, hey, I don't care if that guy's 50 yards from you or not. Don't even worry if he's caught a fish. It doesn't matter. There are so many fish out here. Keep fishing your game plan. Stick to what you're doing and don't follow him. But, you see it constantly in the high school game where one guy hooks up in a crowd and all of a sudden it's like everyone just starts shrinking into that one area. So kind of tried to teach our guys to get away from that, do their own thing. Don't do that because that's frowned upon. That's how you really get people mad. So those are kind of, but I'm sure I'm blanking on some other stuff. I'm trying to think of the conversation Caleb and I just had not too long ago about it, but I can't exactly remember what the heck we were talking about. But anyways, that's part of it at least.
Yeah, there's a good amount of them, really, honestly, and it's especially when you're someone new into that scene, you're trying to embrace yourself into it, learn what you can. It can be kind of overwhelming, not
Right.
knowing these certain things and knowing why you might, piss somebody off or somebody might
Right.
know you and knowing different things, this and that. But yeah, those are two great points though you make. I mean, we've probably all had it happen to ourselves where you catch one fish in an area, then next thing you know, the boats start coming towards you.
And the thing is too, it varies on almost like on regional level where, when you're on Claire and you're it's a giant bowl and these guys start getting closer and closer and closer and all of a sudden they're in casting distance. Okay, that's an issue. Like that lake, you don't need to do that on. These lakes aren't that specific up here at St. Clair at least, but when you're down on a Kentucky lake or a Pickwick or something like that, some kind of TVA, okay, I understand. Like ledge fishing gets tight sometimes. I've seen it in college tournaments where I'm literally 5 foot from another guy. We're both casting at a spot in front, and it's like the thing is, it's like okay, if we saw each other there in practice, we both know that we practiced there. That's okay. And if we talked about it maybe before the tournament or at takeoff, or we both pull up at the same time and go, hey man, I get it. We both found these fish. Like, do you mind if we fish them together? Is that cool? And you talk about it. Totally okay. I get that, but different when you're on Claire and a giant bowl and all of a sudden you're right next to a guy. It's like, doesn't make sense. But, we've seen how things, even on like those ledges, with Randy and with Jason Lambert there, how that all went. I mean,
bumper cars.
Yeah, it's like that's the worst case scenario. That's what we're trying to avoid, and they obviously know the rules of it. So we're just trying to make sure that our guys are respectful to other anglers, respectful to other tournament guys that might not even be in their tournament, and are doing things the right way to represent themselves correctly on the water, because someone's always watching. So you got to be acting right.
100%. And the biggest thing I think to take away from that, which I'm sure you guys enforce, is just communication is the biggest factor.
Yep.
Like you mentioned going down a bank, right? You're going down a bank and you plan on keep running that. That is your plan. Someone's coming at you the same way. You're like, hey man, which way do you want me to bounce? Do you want me to bounce inside you, bounce outside? Because I want to give you your distance and I want to keep my distance from you.
Exactly.
It's just a simple question, and that's all it takes. I mean, and if they get hostile with you, then hey, look it, you were the bigger man. You made
right. Yep.
You just go on your way, and that's all it is. And then if it's swallowing your pride sometimes too. Like you want to fish an area, but there's someone already there. They might have found it for you. It might have been a timing thing.
That's tournament fishing.
You might feel like you have to fish that area, but sometimes you just gotta swallow your pride and know that okay, they have that spot right now. You gotta respect it. And it's not like they went and spot burned you that you can know about really. If you do know about it, I mean, by all means, you could probably say something, but
right, sure.
How you really want to approach that. But it's there's a bunch of different ethical things, and when it comes to fishing, especially tournament fishing, that not many people know, and it's not taught. So I think that's awesome that you guys have that on there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%, dude. So talk to me a little bit about being a guide in Michigan. So is there like certain bodies of water you go to?
Yeah, so kind of around the same time that we were starting the A1 stuff, we kind of decided that we both need to get either there's two options in Michigan. You could get your 6-pack, your charter license where you can guide on the Great Lakes, or you can get what's called an inland pilot license. So at the time, I was kind of entertaining the idea of maybe guiding for a guy named Marcel up this way. He's got a very successful guide business on St. Clair, and as well, he does some northern trips. So I was thinking about trying to work with him. Unfortunately, just timing wasn't right. Whatever happened, we both just kind of lacked in communication. I didn't end up working for him, but I kind of decided, you know what, I think I'm going to shy away from the St. Clair stuff. There's a ton of guides out there. I don't need to be part of that conglomerate. I kind of decided I'm going to do a northern thing. So my dad's he's lived up in northern Michigan for probably 20 plus years now. And so I'm really familiar with the northern third of the state. So I kind of decided that, in between all this kid stuff, spring and fall, I would do a little bit of guiding up that way. So I really just started it probably about, 2 years ago at most, a year and a half ago, really is when I started trying to entertain this idea. And I would say that this year is really going to be my first successful year doing it. I've had some spotty trips in the years past, but this will be kind of my first year where I've got a pretty solid fall booked already. I've got quite a few guys coming up, and so I'm excited to see how it goes. Like I said, working with the kids has been really rewarding, and it's not always as stressful. Doing the kid stuff because you don't have to worry always about catching fish with them. It's more about teaching them a technique where, as when you're guiding, obviously you got to produce, you got to put your guys on fish and get them to catch. So that's, I'm interested to see how I handle the pressure this year with that. But it's been awesome. I basically, like I said, I do all northern third of Michigan, Burt Lake, Mullet Lake, any of the glacier lakes that are up there in the northern third of the state. I pretty much, I will guide on. I know all of them very well. So it's been fun putting some guys on some giant smallmouth. I think a lot of guys, they think Michigan, they think St. Clair, they think Lake Erie for smallmouth, but those northern bodies of water, they're really starting to get popular because guys realize if you want to catch a state record, if you want to catch a 7-pound plus smallmouth, that's where you're going to do it, is up there in one of those northern lakes. So, it's pretty cool to see. I think it was 2 years ago now, the state record was caught out of Burt, and it was like over 9 pounds. I think it was like 9 pounds. I think I'm pretty positive that's what it was, but I'll have to look it up. But it's just, and so the funny thing is
their girth is just longer than their length.
The funny thing is too about the whole thing is this guy caught it. I'm searching it right now. Right here, smallmouth. 9.33 pounds. Is that it? No, that was his previous state record. The new one, the newest one that was out of Burt was 9.98 pounds. Almost let's call it a 10-pound smallmouth. Okay, so that's an absolute giant. And the guy that caught it, funny story. So my dad's lived up there in Indian River for, like I said, 20 years now, 20 plus years. And so kind of knows everyone up there. And he ended up talking to, I think it was the guy's neighbor. And basically, so this guy's fishing. He lives on the river.
Is that right here?
That was a previous state. That was out of Hubbard. That was a previous state record.
Oh.
That one was 9.33, I think is what it said.
9.32.
Okay, yep. And then if you go back to those, so the second image, that's the second image that was sitting there was the new state record. Yep, that one. So that's probably after it's dead, I'm guessing. But this is what's crazy. That guy, he lives right there in the river. You can see the river in the background.
Yeah.
There's a log jam right there, and basically this log jam he fishes all the time. He went out there and caught it, and he hooked it on I think it was just a crawler on some kind of hook, and I don't know if it was a perch rig or a bobber and a crawler or what, but he hooked it on that, fought it for a while, and finally his neighbor saw him kind of struggling, and so his neighbor came out and he said, hey, he's like, I need help netting this fish. So the neighbor's like, okay, so he nets this fish, and they get up, and his neighbor's standing there. His neighbor's kind of a fisherman. He knows. He's like standing there in awe, like, oh my gosh, this is an absolute giant. And the gentleman was like, yeah, he should eat great, And he was like, whoa. He's like, what? He's like, yeah, he should eat great. And he's like, no. He's like, dude, you got to get this thing weighed. This could be a state record. And he was like, oh, I didn't know. I eat these smallmouth all the time. They're great eating.
Oh
and
my
so,
God.
so it was kind of crazy because if his neighbor wouldn't have come out and helped him net it, the guy probably would have just taken it home, eaten it, and never even known he had a state record. So
I wonder how many times that's happened.
Right? How many times that happened before? I don't know, but I'm sure of it that in some of these northern lakes up there, I'm almost positive that guys have caught the state record and they just have not wanted to say anything because they don't want those fish to get crazy pressured. I know I've got lakes up there that I've caught some absolute giants and that I don't talk about a whole lot because I don't want a bunch of people on those lakes. They're good for a reason because they don't get fished that much, and those fish can grow. Some of those fish they're 15 to 20 years old up in that region. That's such cold water that they grow extremely slowly. So for that fish, I think it was 27 inches. Is that what it said?
27 and a quarter. That is ridiculous.
So if you think about like a 22-inch smallmouth, especially northern strain smallmouth, a 22-inch smallmouth, that fish is probably at least 15 years old. And by the time they hit 22, 23 inches, they're not growing, but at very, very most, probably a quarter inch a year. So I mean, who knows how old that fish was? We're talking 25 years, maybe more. I don't know. I mean, that's a long, long time. So these are old fish that have been around the block. So yeah, I mean, some of these fish, like that fish could have been older than I am. I don't know. So that's
older than me. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. So, but no, it's an awesome place there. I'm liking the guiding so far. You know, it's been pretty enjoyable, and I just like teaching people, you know, how to catch them up there. You know, I think a lot of guys, you know, like I ran into some guys. This was last year, I think, up there, and I think I talked to like 5 different boats that day in the water. And there were quite a few guys for once on these lakes. Everyone I talked to, oh, we've only caught 2-3 fish today. We've been out here, you know, for 6 hours, and we've caught 2 fish, but they've both been over 5 pounds. And they're like, how are you doing? And I'm like, honestly, I've caught over 100 fish today by myself. And I'm just like, I'm dumbfounded because these guys, you know, they haven't figured these northern smallmouth out, which is no knock on them. I mean, they like to do what they like to do, and they thought that this is how they could catch them. But, you know, these guys are out in 25 foot throwing like a single swim bait, and they're like, oh my gosh, well, how have you been catching them? I'm like, dude, I haven't left 4 foot of water all week. I've been in 4 to 2 foot throwing an A-rig, and there's fish everywhere up there. And they're like, really? This is crazy. So it's cool to show guys like, hey, listen, you can catch them out deep too, but like, this is the fun stuff up here. Let me come show you how we really like to catch them in the falls, like on an A-rig, a crankbait, a top water up in like 2 foot of water. Okay. And you can go catch them 25 pounds of smallmouth. That's the fun stuff. Oh, so man. It's cool kind of showing guys that, you know, for the first time and watch them go, oh my gosh, you know, like this water is so clear. There's 15 smallmouth 100 yards away up on that sand flat. I can see them like in a giant pod just moving about. So that's fun. That's what makes it really rewarding. It's like you get guys on giant smallmouth like that, and it's like those are days that they won't forget. They're like, man, This is unbelievable. So that's the fun part. But
that's incredible, dude. So are you still fishing tournaments then, or are you just pretty much guiding and doing your coaching? And
yeah, you know, a little bit, man. It's funny. I get asked this question like it seems like every other week. It seems like I have a guy asking me what tournaments I'm going to do, what tournaments I'm going to do. You know, coming out of college, you know, the ultimate goal, I guess, for me is absolutely, would I love to fish professionally? Sure. You know, do I want to go fish on the elites? Absolutely. You know, I'm sitting here and, you know, I talked to Garrett Paquette quite a bit. I know Garrett recently. And so,
Douglas boy.
Yeah. So exactly. The new Douglas boy. Right. So, you know, it's funny because I watched where he started and what he fished and now where he's at with it all. And I'm like, man, I don't know why I didn't do that. I could have very well been in the same spot he's in. So I kind of kicked myself a little bit for it. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm just kind of doing local stuff right now, focusing on the kids stuff, doing the guiding. Next year, you know, I'm probably leaning towards doing some of the Toyotas just to try them out, see how I do in them. You know, I look at a lot of the college stuff and where some of those college guys are at now, especially against guys that I did well against and, you know, and where they're at with their careers. And I'm like, there's no reason that I couldn't be doing that or more. So hopefully next year, some of the Toyotas I'll mix in. There's like a local trail here in Michigan that it's similar to a Toyota series where it's like, I think it's like a $1,600 entry fee. So I'm going to do that series and, you know, throw a little bit more money at it and see how I do. And then, you know, from there, you know, in 3-4 years, if I've got the financial means to do it or the company's behind me to, you know, that I can go, hey guys, I want to give this a crack. Will you support me? Then, you know, then I'll maybe try, you know, doing the opens and going for the elites and stuff. That is the ultimate goal for me. But at this point, I'm trying to ease my way there. It's as you know, and a lot of other guys know, it's a huge financial burden. So, you know, it's about finding the time and money to do it and do it right. You know, I don't want to go into it half-hearted. There's a lot of guys you see that they're like, oh, I'm going to go cherry pick the Toyotas. And it's like, okay, well, what good does that do? You win a little bit of money here and there, but that's it. You know, it's like if you're going to do a series, you got to do the whole thing all the way through to make it worth your time. If you actually want to make it more than just doing those cherry picking. So, you know, when I had the time and the money, yeah, I'd love to do the elites or do the opens and try and make the elites, that is. But
yeah,
tough thing. It's a lot easier said than done. So
100%. It's definitely a work in progress. Not many people can just go straight to it out of college and have that right there for them right at the beginning so they can make a whole career out of it. So
Right.
it's definitely a work in progress. A lot of guys grind for it, and I'm sure there's guys that have been 20, 30 years in the process, still have that dream, and are still working for it. But
Yep.
it's pretty awesome. I can't wait to see you go after it, dude. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I hope so, man. It's I don't know. It's funny because I look at a lot of these pros and you look at their story and they're like, oh man, I didn't go pro until I was 40 years old. So that's the beautiful thing about this sport is that, there's no rush. I think, one of the big things that we teach our guys too is there's no rush to get into professional tournaments. Grow yourself as an angler, develop your skills, get good at your craft, get the best that you can be, and win local tournaments. As soon as you can win local tournaments and do well consistently at the local level, then you can think about venturing past that. But I think so many guys, fresh out of college and in high school and stuff, they get caught up in this shiny idea of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go be the youngest pro. I'm going to go 18 years old and I'm going to go for it. Or I'm going to come fresh out of college and I'm going to go fish the elites or the FLW tour. Dude, there's no rush. You can fish until you're 80 years old. Look at Tom Monsoor. The dude just won an event and he's like, I can't remember how old he was, but he's like, he was like thrilled. Who cares? So
he's 72 or something like that.
Yeah, in his 70s. So there's no rush. I think, seeing like the Jacob Wheelers and the Dustin Connells and the Jordan Lees and all that, like that basically put this huge notion in all the young guys' heads that, oh my gosh, I've got to go pro right now, right here, like this year. There's no rush. Develop yourself,
Yeah.
Jacob Wheeler is one of the best in the world because he's developed his craft so well. He's gotten so good. He fished every single day that he could when he was growing up. And so my biggest piece of advice to young anglers, to high school anglers, even college anglers, spend as much time as you can on the water. It doesn't matter if you're fishing a tournament. It doesn't matter if you're just fun fishing with buddies. Go fish with everyone that you can. It doesn't matter if they're the worst angler or the best in the world. Go fish with them, and you can learn from them whether it's what not to do or what to do, and develop your craft. Get good at fishing, okay? And then from there, you can think about expanding your career. Because I think too many guys jump into it way too early, and they're super inexperienced and way over their head. All of a sudden, they're in these huge high-end tournaments. They're bombing like crazy. They've got zero confidence in what they're doing, and it's all because they rushed into it. So take your time, develop your craft. You'll get there. It just takes time. It's not always as easy as Wheeler makes it seem.
Yeah. Definitely don't model your decision making after that's a whole nother level. Yeah. But that's awesome. So dude, anything coming up for you here soon in the next coming
it's been a busy summer. I think this whole COVID thing, we were super worried about our kids program and we didn't know how it would all go. But it's actually been really, really good for us. There's been a ton of kids that have been locked in the house and want to get out and fish. So that's been good. But yeah, we've got, basically, I think we'll be busy all the way into the end of September. We've got a lot of our kids in our program. They're going to start being homeschooled. Some of them are solely online now this semester for high school. So I'll be basically, yesterday I had a whole day sessions from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Thursday I've got one from, like 7:30 to 12:30. I've got another one on Friday, and then I've got another one on Saturday, I think. And then from there, we've got a kids tournament on Labor Day weekend. And then it starts that's our last tournament of the year for the guys. So our last high school tournament's Labor Day. And then from there, it's guiding season. So I've got a couple week-long trips, one 10-day trip, and a couple weekends booked up with guys, basically from the middle of September all the way into the middle of October. So it'll be busy. It'll be real busy. I think I counted the other day. I think in the last 3 months, there's only been 12 days that I haven't been on the water. 12 days out of the last 3 months. So that's a lot, man. That's a lot of time on the water.
It is.
So
I respect that. I like it.
Yep, but it's been busy. We've been blessed, man. We're excited to keep growing it, and hopefully next year it'll just be bigger and better with the guys. So.
Heck yeah, man! I hope that's the case for you guys, 100%. So, dude, we're gonna wrap things up here in a second, but I have a question I like to ask everybody who's new to the show, who comes on for the first time, before we wrap things up, because I think it's very interesting to see what their answers are. And my question for you is, before we sign off here tonight, is if you could sit down and say you want to have a steak and a beer dinner with 3 different people. They could be past, present. They don't have to be fishing industry. Who would you invite to come have a steak and a beer and pick their brain? Who would you invite?
Man, I think one of the more interesting gentlemen that I've met, and his story kind of, struck me as not what I thought it was, I guess, was Johnny Morris. I think I would really like to sit down with that guy and just talk to him and see, how it all unfolded for him and how he made the connections he did. Seems like a really genuine dude, the little bit that I've gotten to talk to him. So I think I'd like to sit down with him a little bit and chat and see just about the industry as a whole and get all the inside scoop. And who else would I want to talk to? Gosh, you know what? I don't even know. That's a good. I don't think I've ever been asked that question.
Childhood hero, a sport. Did you play any other sport growing up? Soccer, so maybe somebody.
I played soccer quite a bit, but I don't think I'd want to talk to any of those. I think more than anything, it'd probably all be fishing industry guys. I'd probably I'd want to sit down with one of the top pros in the world right now, like a Jacob Wheeler, a Jordan Lee or a Kevin Van Dam, and talk to them and see what their biggest piece of advice are for an up-and-coming angler maybe. And then, gosh, who the heck else would I want to talk to? I don't know. That's it. I got 2, I guess. I don't know who my third would be.
So let me ask you this then. We'll keep it at 2, but I'm going to ask you this question. If you could get all of your anglers, your kids into a room, and you can only choose one angler to talk to your kids for them to learn for that season, who would you pick as say a pro angler to teach them? Maybe not even a pro, just maybe one angler that you'd want to teach these kids.
It would probably be, honestly, it'd probably be Mark Zona. And the one reason I say that is because I absolutely love the dude personality and his tenacity and his joy that he gets out of fishing. If I'm as excited and as pumped up as he is when he catches a fish at his age, I'm gonna love it. I mean, that dude, he gets a frog bite or something, and he is like the most animated dude you've ever seen. And exactly what you see on TV is how he is in person. And so I think I'd have him in the room to inspire these kids and to put a fire under their butt to get working and get after it.
I like that because he's not only does he have the ability to teach with the knowledge and the mindset, but I also think he has the character where the kids will relate to him, understand him, and be willing to learn from him. So I think he has that very outgoing personality where kids can kind of
100%.
See that. So I think that's a great answer. I like that one.
Heck
so, yeah, some show dirt coming to the A1.
There you go, some show dirt. Yeah, absolutely.
Like that, man. It's awesome. So any last comments or anything before we sign off tonight?
Not a whole lot. For anyone listening or any young anglers that are listening, if you're not in the Michigan area, that's totally okay. You can get on our podcast too. Like I said, the Vision series, and basically learn about high school and college fishing if you want. You can figure out if it's for you. And for Michigan guys, anyone in our area or any high school anglers listening, if you want to learn more about opportunities, with A1 Angler, please reach out to me or Caleb or, however you want on Instagram or through the website, and we'll help you out however we can and try and get you guys on the water. So that's about it. It's little bit of guiding coming up here, so I'm getting ready for that. And I don't know, man, it's gonna be busy for the next couple months still. So
awesome. Well, I hope you do be busy, especially on the guide side. So what we'll do is we're gonna link everything down below. So if people are interested, they can go down the description, find every program. They can find the A1, they can find your guide service. and then they can see your social media. So we'll link all of that down below so people can go follow all the above and be able to access those. So, dude, thank you for taking time out of your night. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we finally are able to find time to sit down and talk, and I'm looking forward to having you on again. We have some panels coming up soon, and I'll share some with you offline here, but it'll be cool to have you on, have you be a part of that.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always cool to get on some different podcasts and see how all the other guys kind of run them, and and just get some names and faces out there. So appreciate you having me on.
Of course, man. Well, you take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, man.
All right, bye.
See you.
All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed that podcast there with Nick. A lot of valuable information there. Especially if you are or you know someone who is an up-and-coming angler, whether in high school, younger than high school, college, and you want that resource. That's a great person, great program with the A1 Angler Development, as well as their the Vision Series podcast that they run. Be sure to share that or access that if you're willing to learn, looking to learn and develop yourself as an angler. So go down below, follow them on social medias, check out the website. You will not be pissed. And guys, make sure you guys check out Douglas Outdoors, Queen Tackle, Amped Outdoors, a whole bunch of stuff down below. You guys can help save your money on and access some really cool stuff. So before I am done being able to stutter on here, we're going to sign off tonight. Thank you guys again for watching, listening. We'll see you guys in the next podcast.